The Boy with Bees in His Head. Story by Edward Forrest, illustrated by Cheyenne Reed. Copyright 2020. The story may or may not be true. Once upon a time, there was a little boy with bees in his head. His name was Timmy. Nobody knows how they got inside or when they got inside. It was probably when Timmy was a baby. When he was little, there were only 2 bees in his head. He would tell people about the bees, but nobody believed him. They were good bees and never stung his brain. He could hear them buzzing when he put his hands over his ears. Sometimes he would land on Timmy's brain, and that tickled. So Timmy would shake his head, and the bees would fly around and stop tickling his brain. Timmy loved his family. He had 3 older sisters who spoiled him. He had an older brother who liked to play video games with him. He had 2 parents and many aunts, uncles, and cousins who loved him very much. The family had 5 dogs. One of the dogs was Timmy's very own. His name was Oreo. Oreo was very old and blind. Timmy took very good care of Oreo. Timmy would sit with Oreo as he ate his food, cover him at night, and carry him outside so that he did not fall down the steps on the porch. Timmy liked superheroes, especially Batman. Timmy liked to go on adventures. And Timmy liked to run very, very fast. Zoom! As Timmy got older, as more and more bees tickled his brain, he would shake his head more and more and more. Sometimes he could not stop shaking his head. He would shake his head until his neck was sore. All the shaking gave him bad headaches. His parents took him to the doctor, but the doctors could not figure out what was wrong. Timmy did not tell them about the bees. He didn't think anyone would believe him. Soon the bees were tickling his brain all the time. The bees would tickle his eyeballs and make him blink. This really worried his parents, so they took Timmy to the hospital emergency room. At the hospital, they gave Timmy a CAT scan. A CAT scan is not rubbing a cat back and forth on your head. It is a special kind of X-ray that shows the inside of Timmy's head. The CAT scanner is a big tube-shaped machine. It was noisy, but Timmy didn't feel a thing. The doctors looked at the CAT scan of Timmy's head and made a discovery. The doctors came and told his parents that Timmy had bees inside of his head. The next morning, they sent Timmy in an ambulance to the big city hospital. At the hospital, they gave Timmy something to make him sleepy. Then they took him for an MRI. An MRI is like a CAT scan, only it uses powerful magnets to take a picture of the inside of someone's head. The machine is even noisier than the CAT scanner. Luckily, Timmy wasn't a robot, or the MRI machine would have pulled him to dozens of pieces. If you're a human, you don't feel anything at all. Inside of Timmy's head, they found a large hollow, and it was filled with bees. The doctors told Timmy they would need to do surgery to get the bees out. Then they sent Timmy home until it was time for the operation. Timmy had to get blood samples taken. He was very brave when they used a needle to get blood out of his arm. Soon Timmy and his parents went to talk to the neurosurgeon about his operation. Timmy is worried about the surgery, but was brave because he did not want his parents and family to worry more. Because Timmy was having brain surgery, he was invited to visit the local fire company. When it was time, his parents drove Timmy back to the big city hospital for his operation. At the hospital, Timmy had to get undressed and put on a hospital gown that opened in the back. Timmy had to hold it shut when walking around so his butt didn't stick out. Before the surgery, they shaved Timmy's head bald and shined it up like a bowling ball. Well, maybe not. They did shave part of his head where they were going to make the incision, or cut, so that the hair would not be in the way. When it was almost time, they wheeled Timmy down to the pre-op room, and Timmy and his parents waited there. The nurses gave Timmy an IV. An IV is a pouch of water and medicine that runs through a tube into the patient's arm. The surgeon and the anesthesiologist came to the room and talked to Timmy and his parents about the operation. When the doctors were done talking, the nurses put some medicine in the IV bag that made Timmy fall asleep. In the operating room, they had all kinds of equipment and a whole team of people to take care of Timmy during the operation. After they made sure Timmy was asleep and not feel anything, the surgeon made a cut in Timmy's scalp to expose his skull. Then they used a drill to cut a small hole through Timmy's skull. Your skull is very, very hard. Then the surgeon used a special camera to look inside. There were bees inside of Timmy's head. They took the camera out and shined a light down the hole. The bees had never seen a light before, so one by one they crawled out of the hole to investigate. As they crawled out one by one, the doctor caught each one in a jar. Once the bees stopped coming out of the hole, the doctors put the camera back in to look around, and yes, all the bees were gone. Then they sucked out half of Timmy's brain to make more room and put the bees back inside. No, that didn't really happen. Let's try again. The nurse took the jar of bees outside and released them. The bees flew off towards some nearby trees. Back in the operating room, they put giant steel bolts in the hole in his skull like the ones of Frankenstein's monster. Well, maybe not. They stitched the cut in his scalp, then the surgery was over. Over time, the hole in Timmy's skull would grow shut. They rolled Timmy back to the recovery room, and pretty soon he woke up. Then they took Timmy to a regular hospital room. His parents were waiting for him there. He was still sleepy and tired, but he was happy to see them. Timmy stayed at the hospital for several days. He rested, he watched TV, ate his meals, and felt stronger and better every day. His parents and family visited every day, and he got dozens of get-well cards and gifts from all over. The doctors and nurses checked on him every day. Soon he was allowed to go back home. Timmy still needed to go back to the doctors for checkups, but he was happy to be home. It took a while, but then Timmy was again going on adventures, spending time with his family, and running very, very fast. Timmy even liked being able to homeschool again. Timmy no longer had to shake his head. He was able to stop blinking all the time. The bees were gone. Timmy sometimes wondered about the bees. What happened to them? In his mind, Timmy decided they built a nest, pollinated flowers, made honey, and lived happily ever after. For years and years, people would say, "I need that like I need another hole in my head." Timmy would laugh and say, "I already have one." People would not know what Timmy was talking about, and that made it even funnier. Is this a true story? It is mostly true. Only Timmy had a large cyst, sort of like a water balloon, the size of a softball in his head, instead of bees. Timmy is still recovering, but is doing well now.